haven't really slept in 13 years. People always argue with me about that. They say no, that's impossible. Your brain would shut down. You'd die. You must be sleeping and just not remembering it. Maybe they're right. I don't have the energy to fight anyone about it. What I know is this. I close my eyes sometimes. Sure. I lie down. I stare at the ceiling. Then it's suddenly lighter outside. My phone says 3 or 4 hours have gone by, and I don't remember slipping under. I don't remember dreaming. I don't feel rested. My head feels full of sand. My body feels like it's full of static. And the day goes on. It's not sleep. Not the kind I remember from when I was a kid. Back then, when I did sleep, I would drop out of the world and not know anything for a while. Now it's more like coming in and out of a blackout, except I'm not drinking. At least not enough for that. Anyway, that's the boring part of the story. Everyone's tired. No one cares if you're tired too. The only reason I'm telling you about it is because it's how I got stuck with that nickname. The man who never sleeps. I work nights at a 24-hour supermarket on the edge of the city. It's one of those big chains, bright lights, white tiles, fake plants near the entrance that never move. During the day, it's families and old women and guys in suits grabbing salads. At night, it's drunk kids, people coming off late shifts, and the kinds of customers you remember later for all the wrong reasons. My shift starts at 10 at night and runs to 6 in the morning. Sometimes they make me stay until 7 if the morning guy is late again. Then I walk home through streets that look washed out and empty, like someone sucked all the color out of them. My apartment is on the top floor of a 6-story building about 10 minutes from the store. If I stand by my window and lean a little to the left, I can see into the windows of the building across the narrow street. There's a sort of half courtyard, half alley between us. It smells like trash in the summer and wet concrete in the winter. The first night I saw him, I was just smoking and trying to decide if I should shower or just fall face first onto the mattress. He was in the window directly opposite mine, 3 floors down. At first I thought I was looking at my own reflection, because he was standing very still, shoulders a little slumped, staring out. Then I noticed the angle was wrong. His window was a rectangle of yellow light. Mine was dark behind me. He was thin, not dramatic about it, just narrow shoulders, long neck. He wore a dark t-shirt and gray sweatpants. His hair looked short on the sides, longer on top, messy in the way that either means you just woke up or you gave up trying. He was just standing there. No phone in his hand. No cigarette. Just staring out at nothing. I watched him for a minute or two. Nothing happened. It felt weird to keep staring, so I looked away, finished my smoke, and went inside. Shower, instant noodles, blink. Then the room was brighter and my alarm was buzzing. The next night he was there again. Same window, same posture, same blank, heavy stare. Third night, same thing. After about a week of it, I started to time him. I got home, dropped my backpack, went to the window. There he was. I'd stand there, and he'd stand there, like we were weird mirror images of each other, both too tired to care. He never sat down. He never moved away. Not while I was watching. At some point I started to feel like I should wave or something, but that was insane. 2 grown men waving at each other from their windows at dawn, like neighbors in some awkward sitcom. No thanks. I told myself he was probably like me. Night shift somewhere. Eyes wired, body buzzing, mind refusing to shut up. Maybe he had his own routine: stand at the window, watch a stranger watching him, go to bed, or at least to whatever waited for him where sleep should be. I didn't know yet that he didn't sleep at all. Or that, depending on who you asked, neither did I. The first murder happened in October. It was a Tuesday night, I think. Technically Wednesday morning. Dates blur when you work nights. You only notice weekends because the drunk kids come out in packs instead of pairs. The victim was a woman in her 30s. I recognized her when they showed her picture on the news. She came into the store sometimes around midnight, bought yogurt and those little bottles of probiotic drinks that promise to balance your gut. She always wore a blue beanie, even inside. I remember that because the guard at the door asked her once to take it off so he could check it, and she glared at him hard enough to make him step back. They found her in her apartment 2 streets from mine. The TV in our break room is one of those old flat screens with a permanent dark patch crooked across the corner. It always shows the news at the start of my shift, because the day people leave it like that. I came in, pulled off my hoodie, clocked in, and glanced up. There she was, blue beanie in her photo, soft face, tired eyes. Underneath, the usual text: local woman found dead. I stood there a bit longer than I meant to. My manager, Paula, waved a hand in front of my face. "You alive?" she said. She was chewing gum and typing something on the tablet at the same time. "Yeah. Sorry. I know her, kind of." "You know half the street," she said. "She's the yogurt lady, right?" "Yeah." They cut to a video of the building entrance, police tape sagging in the rain, people in the background pretending not to stare. The reporter said words like brutal and violent struggle. She mentioned no sign of forced entry, and neighbors heard nothing. She said the police were asking anyone with information to come forward. I thought 2 streets away. And then I thought, I didn't hear anything. Then I thought, of course you didn't. You were at work. The reporter kept talking about how shocking it all was, how this was a quiet area, like you should only expect to be murdered in bad neighborhoods, not near a supermarket and a pharmacy. I glanced at the little clock in the corner of the screen. They said she was last seen around 11. I tried to remember if she had come in that night. I couldn't. I pictured the doors sliding open, the beanie coming through, her buying yogurt. But I didn't know if I was remembering the night before, or last week, or if I was just filling in the gap because my brain didn't like empty spaces. Paula smacked my arm with the tablet. "Come on, insomniac. We got a delivery." I went out back and spent the next hour wrestling boxes off a pallet, trying not to think about anything. When my shift was over and I walked home, I went the long way on purpose. Past her building. They had taken the tape down by then, but the door still felt heavy in the air, like it was dragging attention to it. A woman with a stroller hurried past me and kept her eyes on the ground. Someone had left a candle and a bunch of wilting flowers near the door, wrapped in plastic that rattled in the breeze. I could see the windows of her apartment. Lights off. Curtains half drawn. It made my skin crawl. When I got home, I went straight to the window. He was there. Same spot as always. Standing in that yellow rectangle, staring out at me. The shape of his face looked sharper than usual in the morning light longer. The shadows under his eyes were deep smudges. I wondered if he had heard anything last night. Maybe he had been standing exactly there while it happened. Maybe while she was being hurt, killed, 2 streets away, he was watching our shared strip of brick and sky, seeing nothing, feeling nothing. Just like me. I don't know why that thought stuck. But it did. A week later, there was another one. This time it was a man in his 40s, found in the parking lot behind a bar about 15 minutes walk from the store. The news said he worked at the bar, closed up late, never made it to his car. 2 teenagers found him when they went back there to smoke and probably hook up. I was at the register that night. I remember it because some guy with a laughing red face bought 3 bottles of vodka and made a joke about the victim. Bad way to go, he said. At least he died doing what he loved, right? Working. His friend laughed, then looked at me like he wanted me to laugh too. I just scanned the bottles, waited for the please verify age prompt, hit the button, and handed them back. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice not to do something weird. The details on the news were worse this time. Same phrases. No sign of forced entry. Well, it was a parking lot. What did that even mean? Violent struggle. Extreme force. They made a big deal about how fast it happened. 1 minute the bartender is locking the door. Next minute he's on the ground in the back lot. No one heard a scream. No one saw anything. No cameras caught anything useful. Something about a shadow, maybe. A shape. Online, people started calling him a monster. They also started calling him something else. The man who never sleeps. It started as a joke in the comments. This guy doesn't sleep, does he? He's just out here every night. Then someone made a stupid little meme. A blurry picture of an empty street with red text over it. Then don't sleep, it said. The man who never sleeps is already awake. It spread faster than the actual news link. People made TikToks about it. Girls with ring lights did their makeup like they were tired and said things like, POV, you're the man who never sleeps, and you've already memorized every dark alley in your city. Paula showed me one on her phone. Hey, that's you, she said, laughing. Our very own man who never sleeps. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Sure. You even look like him, she said. Look. She held the phone closer to my face. Pale. Big eye bags. Dead inside. Thanks, I said. She tapped my shoulder with the back of her hand, still laughing, and went to yell at the bakery guy about something. When my shift ended, I walked home, checking each side street without meaning to. Any place someone could have been dragged, any corner that looked too dark. When I got to my building, I didn't go upstairs right away. I crossed the alley and stopped under his building instead, craning my neck to find his window. There it was. Same floor, same rectangular light. He was standing there. Or maybe it was a trick of the light. I couldn't tell for sure from that angle. I watched for a while, feeling stupid. Nobody else was out. The city felt hollowed out, like a shell. Probably everyone was inside, reading about the murder on their phones. talking about it, trying to joke it into something less scary. I looked up so long my neck started to hurt. Eventually I went inside and trudged upstairs. In my own apartment, I dropped my bag by the door and walked straight to the window. He was there, closer than before. Or maybe I was closer. We were almost eye level, even though he was 3 floors down. The distance between us felt slim, like one long step. His face was in shadow, but I could see the whites of his eyes. They looked wrong. Not evil or glowing or anything dramatic. Just wrong. The way someone's eyes look after they've been crying for hours. Or the way your own look in the mirror at 4 a.m. after scrolling through your phone hoping to get tired and failing. He lifted his hand, just a little, like he might be about to wave. I froze. My heart jumped into my throat. No one ever waves from there. No one acknowledges that they've been watching or being watched. That's the silent agreement. His fingers curled, hovered in the air. Then he lowered his hand again, slowly, and stepped back, just enough that I couldn't see his face anymore. I realized I'd been holding my breath. I let it out in a slow, shaky stream and stepped away from the glass. I didn't shower that morning. I lay down on the bed fully clothed and stared at the ceiling. My mind spun. Every time my eyes closed, I saw his window, the yellow light, the outline of his shoulders. The next thing I knew, my phone alarm was shrilling. The room was dimmer, not brighter. I must have drifted, but it didn't feel like it. It felt like someone had skipped ahead in a movie. I sat up too fast, and my vision went gray at the edges. A dull ache pulsed behind my eyes. Work. Again. The days all fold in on themselves when you never really sleep. There were 3 more in the next month, all in the same general area, all late at night, all violent. 2 women, 1 man. The reporters started using that word brutal more often, like it made them feel important. They said the attacks were escalating. They said the killer was growing bolder. Someone online made a map with little red pins showing all the sites. To me, it looked like a messy circle around our neighborhood. The cops got more visible. Cars idled on corners. Uniforms came into the store and drank coffee from paper cups, watching everyone. They asked if we had seen anything, if anyone stood out. How would we know? Paula said, rolling her eyes after they left. Every zombie in the city comes through that door at night. Half of them stare like they want to kill somebody, you, for example. She pointed at me. It's just my face, I said. Uh-huh. Tell that to the cops if they pick you up. She pulled her hair back into a bun and snapped a rubber band around it. I'm not angry, officer, I'm just tired. I did laugh at that. A little. But it didn't stay funny for long. Because that was when I started losing time. The first time I noticed it, I was in aisle 7, restocking canned tomatoes. I remember thinking that my hands hurt. The cardboard boxes always cut into the same spots on my fingers. I was thinking maybe I should start bringing gloves, or at least some tape. I pulled another can out of the box, turned to face the shelf, and then I was standing in the walk-in fridge, my fingers numb from cold, holding a crate of milk. The shift had jumped. When I checked my phone, 40 minutes were gone. I must have just gone on autopilot, I told myself. Happens all the time. You do something boring over and over, Your brain taps out. It doesn't mean anything. Except it hadn't happened to me like that before. Not like a whole chunk being edited out. I asked Jamal, the guy on produce, if he remembered seeing me restocking dairy. Yeah, he said slowly. You did, 2 crates. Then you just kind of spaced out for a minute. Spaced out how? He shrugged. Like you were thinking about something really hard. You know, that thing you do. What thing I do? He tapped his forehead with one finger. You know, staring into the void. It sounded like a joke, so I laughed with him. But inside, something dropped. The second time was worse. I was walking home. The sky was just starting to pale. My backpack felt heavier than usual, like I'd filled it with bricks instead of a half-eaten sandwich and a book I never seemed to read. I remember passing the pharmacy with the flickering sign. Then I was under the shower in my apartment, water pounding on my shoulders, my clothes still on. My shirt was stuck to my chest. My jeans clung to my legs. Everything was soaked and clumsy and freezing. My shoes made slow, squelching noises when I shifted my weight. I blinked, not understanding. The water was running ice cold. My teeth started to chatter. I slapped the tap off and staggered back against the tile. The shower floor was pink. For a second, I just stared at it, brain not accepting what I was seeing. Then the color shifted as the last of the water spiraled toward the drain. It wasn't pink, not really. The tile was pinkish, always had been. The water was clear. My mind had tried to fill in something else. I swallowed hard, half a laugh, half a sob. It's fine, I told myself. You're fine. But my clothes were streaked with something dark, on the sleeves, on the front of my shirt, a few crusted patches on my jeans. It had been watered down by the shower, but you didn't need much imagination, or any really, to know what it might be. I peeled the shirt off. The wet fabric made a sucking sound against my skin. I lifted it to my face and sniffed. Metallic. Sharp. Under the smell of cheap detergent and cold water. I dropped it on the tiles like it had burned me. There are other explanations, I told myself. The store, the delivery, that box of broken jars of tomato sauce from earlier. But the red on my shirt was too dark to be tomatoes, and that metallic edge of the smell wouldn't go away no matter how hard I tried to pretend. My hands shook as I undressed the rest of the way. I dumped everything into a garbage bag, tied it shut, and shoved it into the back of my wardrobe where I could pretend I'd never see it again. I didn't take it out to wash. I didn't bring it down to the building bins. I just stuffed it there and walked away. When I finally made myself go to the window, the light in his apartment was on. He was there. Of course he was. Standing in his usual spot, watching. My breath fogged the glass. For the first time, I wondered if he was actually looking at me, or just through me. Like maybe what he was really watching was something that moved behind my shoulder, something that came and went with the gaps in my memory. I lifted my hand, sudden and clumsy. My fingers smacked the glass, leaving streaks. I don't know what I meant to do. Wave, flip him off. something. He didn't react. It was like he couldn't see me at all. I stood there until my forehead started to throb and my eyes burned. Eventually I stumbled back, lay down on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. Every time I blinked, I saw that pinkish water. When my alarm jolted me up for the next shift, I felt like I'd been on my back for 5 minutes, not 4 hours. If I slept, I didn't feel it. If I dreamed, I didn't remember. The third time I lost time, someone died. I know that for sure, because I saw her in the store earlier that night. Her name tag said Lucia. She was about my age, give or take 5 years. It's hard to tell these days. Everyone either looks 20 or 50. She came in with a guy. He was taller than her, with a jaw that stuck out too much and a haircut that said he cared a lot about the way he looked and not at all about what anyone thought of him. He kept touching her elbow. Not gentle, possessive. They bought snacks, cheap wine, a pack of cigarettes. He did all the talking. She stared at the counter like she wanted to sink into it. "You guys got cameras out there?" he asked, jerking his chin at the sliding doors. "Yeah," I said, "front and back." He smirked. "Good. Safety first, right?" He winked like we were sharing a joke I hadn't agreed to. Lucia flinched a little like the wink was directed at her instead. They left. Their reflection slid across the glass. I kept thinking about her eyes, the way they had that flat, distant look people get when their body is somewhere they don't want to be. I told myself it was none of my business. I rang up the next customer. Time moved on. Later, sometime after 3, Paula told me to take my break. I checked my phone in the break room. 312. I remember that number because the digits lined up in an ugly way. 1, 2, 3 in the wrong order. I remember thinking I should eat something with actual protein in it, not just chips. I opened my locker. My lunchbox was on the shelf. I blinked. Then I was sitting on the steps outside my building, the sky gray and heavy, my backpack on my lap. The street was damp like it had rained while I was inside. My hands were shaking. I checked my phone again. 5:41. I had never walked home. I had no memory of clocking out, saying goodbye. Nothing. 2.5 hours. Gone. I told myself I'd just been exhausted, that I'd gone through all the motions on autopilot again. Maybe I'd even fallen asleep sitting on the bus, except I didn't take the bus, I walked. I sat there on the steps for a long time, feeling like I'd been hollowed out. Cars went past. A dog barked in the distance. Then a police siren wailed somewhere not too far away. One burst, sudden and sharp, then another, then more. They grew louder, closer. My heart rate jumped. I stood up and leaned over the railing. The sirens flashed around the corner, bathing the buildings in brief, ugly colors. 3 cars, then an ambulance. They sped down the street and turned left, toward the supermarket. It might have been any direction, I told myself. A coincidence. There are a lot of left turns in this city. But I knew, even before I heard the buzzing in my pocket. I pulled my phone out. 6 missed calls from Paula. I didn't answer them. I watched the point where the cars had gone out of sight. There was another burst of light as more sirens joined them, distant this time. My stomach clenched. The world tilted a little. You need to find out, I thought. You can't just stand here. But I didn't move. I went upstairs instead, like a coward. My hands left faint, dirty smears on the rail as I climbed. They felt tacky. Not sticky exactly, but not clean. I wanted to scrub them. In my apartment, I dumped my backpack on the floor and went straight to the sink. I turned the water on as hot as it would go and shoved my hands under the stream. The water turned a pale brownish red as it hit my skin. Tomato sauce, I thought desperately. Old grease from the fryer. Something from work. I looked closer. There were dark flakes under my fingernails. Some of them were stubborn, clinging. I dug at them with my thumb. They came away in little curled streaks. The smell rose up with the steam. Metallic again, but heavier this time. Sour underneath. I gagged and turned my face away, still scrubbing. The hot water scalded my skin, but I kept going until it ran clear, until my hands were bright and angry and shaking. I turned the tap off and leaned on the sink, breathing hard. The silence in the apartment pressed in from all sides. My phone buzzed on the counter. Another call. I didn't look at the screen. I already knew. Someone screamed outside. Not a playful scream. Not someone calling to a friend. One of those raw, full-bodied sounds that tear straight through your nerves. I stumbled to the window and shoved it open. Down on the street, people were clustering at the corner. Phones were out, arms pointed, faces turned toward the supermarket, even though we couldn't see it from here. The buildings blocked the view. Sirens still wailed somewhere out of sight. More now. Too many. I scanned the crowd almost in a panic, looking for his window across the way. It was lit. He was there, but he wasn't standing at the glass this time. He was closer, pressed right up to it, both hands flat against the pane like he was trying to push through. His eyes were wide, wider than I'd ever seen his mouth moved, but I couldn't hear any sound. For the first time, he didn't look blank. He looked terrified. I couldn't tell if he was scared of what was happening outside, or of something else. Maybe of me. The thought came in cold and clean, cutting straight through the noise in my head. I stepped back from the window. My phone buzzed again. I ignored it. I looked down at myself instead. Dark smears on my hoodie. Drops on the front of my jeans. Not much, but enough. Enough to mean something. I grabbed the hem of the hoodie, lifted it, and sniffed it before I could talk myself out of it. That same smell. The one my brain kept trying to file under ketchup or rust or something harmless. I dropped it like it was on fire. In the end, I did exactly what you're not supposed to do. I went to bed. Clothes on, shoes off. That pathetic middle ground. I lay on my side and stared at the wall until my eyes burned, and my phone buzzed, and the sirens wailed, and the world kept moving without me. At some point, the sirens stopped. The buzzing stopped. The light in the room shifted. I didn't feel myself fall asleep. I didn't feel anything. They closed the store for 3 days. Paula texted me once, A blunt message. We are closed. Stay home. Cops might ask questions, FYI. I wrote back, what happened? Then stared at the typing indicator that never appeared. The news filled in the blanks. The victim was Lucia. They showed her staff photo from the store website. She was smiling in it. It didn't look like the woman who had stood at my register, staring at the counter while her boyfriend talked. The photo version of her had more color in her cheeks, hope in her eyes. They said she had stayed late to help with inventory. They said someone had gotten into the back hallway between the stockroom and the loading bay. They said there were signs of a struggle. They used that word again. Brutal. They wouldn't say much else. They didn't have to. The way the reporters spoke, the way their mouths tightened around certain words and then slid past them, told you enough. The way the chief of police stared dead on into the camera and promised they would bring this killer to justice told you even more. They showed security footage of the outside of the store. People coming in and out. Cars parking, leaving. Nothing useful. They didn't show the inside footage. They said it was part of an ongoing investigation. I sat on my couch and watched it all like it was a show about someone else. My phone buzzed a few times with messages from coworkers. Can you believe this shit? They say he's same guy as others. You okay, man? I didn't answer any of them. At some point, my eyes drifted to the window. His light was on, but he wasn't in it. That was new. For the first time since I'd noticed him, the rectangle of yellow was empty. The curtains were slightly open, but no one stood in the gap. My chest tightened. Maybe he's finally sleeping, I thought. The idea felt wrong, impossible. Like saying the sky had decided to take a day off from being above us. I moved closer to the glass and squinted, trying to see more of the room. All I could make out was a vague shape, a sofa maybe, and something like a tall lamp in the corner. No movement. I watched for 10 minutes straight. My eyes hurt. My head pounded. Nothing. I told myself to stop, to sit down, to drink water, to do anything else. Instead, I grabbed my hoodie from the floor, pulled it on without thinking about the stains, and went downstairs. The air in the stairwell was stale. Someone had left a pizza box on one of the landings. It stank of cold cheese and grease. I ignored it and kept going. Outside, the street felt different. Empty but charged, like the air before a storm. Every small sound was too loud. A can rattling in the gutter. A distant horn. A neighbor's door slamming. I crossed to his building. Up close, it looked just like mine. Same chipped paint. Same grimy entryway. Same broken intercom panel with names half scratched off. I stood there with my hand hovering over the buzzer, feeling stupid. What was I going to say? Hi. I stare at you every morning and I noticed you're not in your usual creepy window spot. Just checking you're okay, by the way. Are you a serial killer? Or is it me? I almost turned around and went back inside. Then the door opened in my face. A man in a suit stepped out, nearly walking into me. He stopped short and frowned. You going in or out? He said. In, I heard myself say. He held the door for me. I slipped past him without meeting his eyes. My heart thudded. The lobby smelled like damp concrete and cleaning fluid. The mailboxes lining one wall were all dented. A few had been forced open. I glanced at the list of names next to the buzzers. Half of them were faded or scribbled over. No clear sign of him. No apartment number marked the guy you stare at every morning. I felt exposed, like there were cameras on me. Like everyone in the building was watching this stranger walk in and hover in their lobby with no good reason to be there. I picked a floor at random. 3rd. The elevator was out of order, so I took the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last. My breath grew louder in my own ears. I could hear a TV somewhere above me, someone yelling on a game show. On the 3rd floor landing, I paused. I didn't know which apartment was his. I had no plan. My brain was just running on some half-formed impulse that had seemed smart at the time. I was about to turn around when I noticed something on the floor by one of the doors. A small, dark smear near the door frame, just above the baseboard. My throat went dry. It could have been anything. Mud, old coffee, some kid spilled soda. But my body knew before my mind did. I stepped closer. There were more of them. Little smudges, almost fingerprints on the door handle. Along the edge of the door itself, as if someone had closed it with sticky hands. The name label on the door was blank. I lifted my own hand and reached out, then stopped an inch away. My fingers trembled. Behind the door, the TV noise was louder. Some kind of show. Laughter. Applause. A woman shouting in excitement. I pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing else. I could have knocked. I should have. A normal person would have. Instead, I took a step back, heart thudding, and went up another floor. 4th, 5th, 6th. By the time I reached the top, my legs were shaking. I pushed open the door to the roof access and stepped out into the cold air. The city spread out around me like a tired animal. Rows of brick and glass. Rooftops cluttered with satellite dishes, laundry lines, junk people didn't want to carry back downstairs. I walked to the edge and looked down at my own building. My window looked back up at me, blank and dark. From this angle, I could see directly into his window too. Still lit. Still empty. The whole thing felt off. Tilted. Like I had slipped slightly out of place and couldn't snap back. I stood there until my fingers went numb from the wind, until my brain quieted just enough to let me think a little more clearly. You are being insane, I told myself. You're wandering around someone else's building because they changed their morning routine. You think every stain is blood. You think you're the center of some story that probably doesn't have anything to do with you. Go home. Sleep. So I did. Or I tried. On the way down, I paused again on the 3rd floor. The door with the stains seemed to lean toward me. I made myself keep walking. If I'd known what was behind it, maybe I would have done something else. But at that point, I still thought the man who never sleeps was him, not me. They reopened the store the next week. There were candles on the sidewalk outside near the staff entrance. Photos of Lucia taped to the wall. Messages written in marker. You deserved better. Rest in peace. Fly high. Someone had drawn little angel wings around her face in one of the photocopies. It made my stomach twist. There was a photo of all of us too, at some staff Christmas party I barely remembered. Someone had circled her and written "Our Lucia" in blue pen. Someone had circled me too, and written "Zombie Lol" with an arrow. I stared at that for a long time. Paula came out for a smoke and saw me. "Hey," she said, blowing smoke away from me. "You okay coming back?" "Yeah," I said automatically. "You weren't answering your phone." "Sorry. I just couldn't." She studied my face for a second. I could tell she wanted to ask if I'd heard anything, seen anything, if I knew anything. I guess she thought better of it. "We got grief counseling if you want it," she said instead. "Company thing. You can talk to some lady on the phone who'll tell you your feelings are valid." She rolled her eyes a little, but not as much as she would have any other week. "I'm okay," I lied. "Sure you are. You're always okay, right? Our man who never sleeps." She tried to make it sound light, but the joke fell flat between us. She flicked ash onto the pavement and nudged one of the candles with her shoe. "They say it was the same guy," she said. "The killer. Same, whatever method." "Yeah," I said. My tongue felt thick. "He must never sleep," she went on. "Always out there, doing that. I don't know when the hell he rests. Maybe he doesn't." I swallowed. "People say that," I said. "Online. They call him that." Her eyes flicked up. "Call him what?" "The man who never sleeps." "Oh." She shrugged. "Figures. People love to make a brand out of everything." She stomped out her cigarette and went back inside. I followed. That night, the store felt wrong. The lighting was the same. The shelves were restocked. The floor had been scrubbed so hard it smelled like chemicals. But the spaces between things were heavier. The back hallway was closed off. Plastic sheeting hung from the ceiling with duct tape, sealing it like a wound. There was a sign on it that said, "Authorized personnel only," in big red letters, as if any of us wanted to go back there ever again. I did my work in jerky mechanical motions. Scan, bag, have a good night. Smiles that felt like pulling a mask over a hole. Every time the door to the back room opened, I flinched. Around 3, it slowed down. The drunk kids went home. The weirdos either left or settled into corners. The security guard started nodding off on his stool. Paula told me to take my break. I froze. "Or don't," she said, misreading my face. "Whatever. I'll clock it in either way. Go stalk or something if you want. I'll stay out here," I said. My voice sounded wrong to my own ears. "You sure? You look like death, man." "I'm fine." She gave me a little side eye but let it drop. The clock on the register ticked over to 3:07, 3:08, 3:09. I focused harder than I ever had in my life on staying present, on feeling every little thing. The weight of the scanner, the texture of receipts, the slight sting on my cuticle where a cardboard box had bitten into it earlier. I did not want to lose time again, Not here. Not now. A woman came through my line and bought a bottle of red wine and a frozen pizza. A guy bought toilet paper and one banana. A girl in a hoodie bought energy drinks with shaking hands. I watched each of them. I remember their faces. I remember their items. The minutes crawled. 3:20, 3:24, 3:30. You're fine, I told myself. See? You're awake. You're here. I rang up another customer, put change in his hand. Blink, I was standing in the produce section, alone. The lights were dimmer, turned down for closing, except we never closed. The clock on the wall said 4:52. My hands were empty. I had no idea how I'd gotten there. Panic surged through me like an electrical shock. I looked down at myself. My hands were clean. My sleeves weren't. Not drenched, not like in horror movies, just marked. Smears on the cuffs, a couple of fingernail-shaped arcs of darker color near my wrists, enough to know that they hadn't been there before. My chest felt tight. My pulse hammered. I stumbled to the staff bathroom, locked the door, turned on the tap and splashed water on my face. The person in the mirror didn't look like me, not exactly. Same features, same tired eyes, same unshaven jaw. But there was something different. My eyes looked wider, the whites more visible, the pupils small, like I'd been standing in bright sunlight. And there was something in my expression I didn't recognize. Not fear, not exactly. Something quieter, satisfied almost. I backed away from the mirror. There was a smear on the collar of my shirt. Faint, but there. I didn't need to smell it to know what it was. Someone knocked on the bathroom door. Hey, you almost done in there? My throat closed. Yeah, I croaked. Sorry. Yeah. I ran more water, scrubbed my hands, tried to wipe the cuffs with cheap brown paper towels. It didn't help much. When I opened the door, Jamal was there. He took one look at me and frowned. You good, man? You look like extra dead. I'm fine, I said. My voice sounded flat. Okay. He didn't move. Did you hear? Hear what? He lowered his voice, even though there was no one else nearby. They say somebody saw him. Who? The guy, the killer, the man who never sleeps, whatever. He gestured vaguely toward the front of the store. Out back, a couple blocks away, old guy walking his dog. Says he saw somebody dragging something. He swallowed. He called the cops, but by the time they got there, nothing. Just a big mess. I stared at him. Mess? I repeated. You know. He looked around again, then leaned in. I could smell his aftershave, sharp and citrusy. Blood, he whispered. Like a lot, but no body. He made a face, half disgust, half excitement. They haven't found anything, man. Just that. My stomach lurched. When? I asked. Huh? When did he see him? Oh, Jamal squinted, thinking. Like half an hour ago? I don't know. Paula was just talking to the cops. She looks pissed. Might send us home early. Half an hour ago. around the time I'd blinked and found myself in produce. I didn't say anything else. I just nodded and walked past him. In the break room, the TV was on. A reporter was talking live from a dark street, her breath puffing in little white clouds. Police tape fluttered behind her. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, "Possible new attack. No victim found." I recognized the street. It was the one with the pharmacy with the flickering sign. The one on my route home. The one where I had not walked, apparently, earlier in the week. I turned the TV off. The silence that followed was worse. Behind my ribs, something began to shift. A thought I didn't want to look at yet. A shape in the corner of a room, just barely visible, that you pretend not to see because you know if you stare straight at it, it'll move. When my shift finally ended, I walked home like I was moving underwater. The sirens had faded by then. The street with the tape was empty except for one tired-looking cop, sipping from a paper cup. He didn't look at me as I walked past. Or if he did, he didn't see anything worth noticing. At my building, I went upstairs, into my apartment, straight to the window. His light was on. He was in it, closer than ever. For the first time, I saw his face clearly. And for a second, a long, freezing second, I thought I was looking in a mirror. Same hair, though his was messier. Same jawline, though his seemed a little sharper. Same hollows under the eyes, carved deep. He looked like me if you took me apart and put me back together slightly wrong. He tilted his head, studying me. I don't know how long we stood there like that. Seconds. Hours. Time didn't feel real. Then, slowly, he raised his right hand. I watched, transfixed, as he lifted it to his own face and dragged 2 fingers down his cheek, leaving behind a thin, dark line, like he was drawing a cut on his own skin. My mind tried to reject it, tried to tell me the line had already been there. A shadow, a trick of the glass, but I knew better. He held my gaze the whole time. My own cheek tingled. Without meaning to, I lifted my hand and touched my face in the same spot. My fingers came away clean. His did not. He raised them slightly, showing me, like a magician revealing the punchline of a trick. Even from this distance, I could tell what color they were. Not ketchup, not rust. He smiled then, a small, tired curve of his mouth that didn't reach his eyes. And for the first time, I understood something I hadn't been able to let myself think before. It wasn't that he never slept. It was that when I did, he woke up. Or maybe it was the other way around. Either way, one thing was clear. One of us was killing people. And we were both running out of nights. After that night, I stopped pretending I was okay. I didn't tell anyone, obviously. What was I going to say? Hey, I think there's another version of me living across the alley who only shows up when I'm unconscious and might be murdering people while I'm on my feet. They already called me zombie behind my back. I didn't need crazy on top of it. So I did the one thing I thought might help. I tried to stop sleeping. Not that I was really sleeping before, but whatever passed for it. The gaps, the the jumps. I tried to fill them in, to pack them with caffeine and noise and motion so they couldn't open up. I bought energy drinks, coffee, over-the-counter pills that promised alertness and mental clarity, and probably a heart attack if you took enough of them. I stacked them on my counter like ammunition. The first night I felt almost normal. Jittery, sure, but that was familiar. I worked my shift wired and twitchy, talking too fast to customers who stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Paula told me to chill. "Seriously," she said, looking me up and down. "You look like you've been drinking battery acid." "I'm just tired," I said. She snorted. "You're always tired. This is new. You on anything?" "No." "Then get on something that makes you less weird," she muttered, and walked away. I didn't zone out that night, didn't jump, not once. I clung to every second like it might get away from me if I blinked wrong. By the time my shift ended, my hands were shaking so hard I had to use both of them to zip up my hoodie. On the walk home, the world looked too sharp. The edges of buildings cut into the sky. Sounds were too loud and too far away at the same time. A dog barked 3 streets over, and it felt like it was right behind me. When I got to my apartment, I didn't go to bed. I made more coffee. I put my phone on the table and propped it up against a mug, camera facing me. I opened the recording app and hit the red button. "Okay," I said out loud, even though no one was there. My voice sounded small. "If I'm losing time, if I'm getting up, leaving, we'll see, right? We'll catch it. Either I sit here all morning and stare at this stupid wall, or something else." I pulled a chair into the middle of the room, sat down facing the window. The light from outside was that washed-out gray that means the day hasn't decided if it's really starting. My muscles twitched. My eyes burned. But I stayed there. The phone stared back. A little red light blinked in the corner of the screen. I watched the window across the alley. His window. It was dark. Curtains half open, showing nothing. No yellow rectangle. No thin figure. No tired eyes. "He's sleeping," I muttered. "You're awake. That's the point." I told myself I'd just sit there until my next shift. Ride the wave of jitters and nausea. Maybe read. Maybe put a movie on. Anything but lie down. Anything but close my eyes. I lasted, I don't know, an hour, 2. Time got slippery. The light shifted in the room. My vision blurred around the edges like someone was slowly smearing Vaseline over my eyes. I pinched my arm, slapped my face, stood up, paced, sat down again. At some point, my thoughts stopped being thoughts and turned into a sort of buzzing, like a TV on in another room. I remember staring at the grain of the wood on the table, following one dark line with my eyes, over and over and over. Then the recording was over. I didn't feel anything in between. No falling, no drifting, no nothing. Just table, wood grain, buzzing. Then, my phone in my hand, screen hot against my palm, the recording app asking if I wanted to save or delete. The light in the room had changed completely. It was late afternoon now, sun slanting in at a different angle. My neck ached like I'd been in the same position for hours. For a second, I thought the phone had glitched, that it had stopped recording on its own. Then I saw the timestamp. 5 hours, 12 minutes. I swallowed. My tongue felt thick and dry. I hit save before I could talk myself out of it and opened the gallery. There I was on the screen, sitting at the table. Same hoodie, same dead stare. At first I didn't move at all, just sat there, breathing. I slid the timeline with my thumb. The me on the screen blurred, jumped. Hours compressed into seconds. Mostly, I didn't move. Sometimes I blinked. Once I rubbed my eyes. Once I stood up, stretched, sat down again. That was it. 5 hours of a guy in a dim room not doing anything. I watched it twice. Slower the second time in case there was a detail I'd missed. Some tiny shift. A shadow. A flicker in the background. Nothing. Halfway through, there was a moment where my head drooped forward. Just a little, like my chin was about to touch my chest. Then it snapped up again, eyes open, staring. If that was sleep, it wasn't the kind I wanted. I looked past the small version of myself on the screen and squinted. Through the phone's lens, I could see a slice of the window behind me. My window, showing the building across. His window was in frame for most of it. Dark, empty, curtains still. Except once. Right near the end. 4 hours in. In the background, barely visible, the yellow rectangle blinked on. A light in his apartment. It flared, turning the glass into a pale square, and stayed that way for 15 minutes. No shape moved in it. No face appeared. Then it blinked off again. I stared at that part until my thumb cramped, until I could have drawn every pixel from memory. He wasn't there. I was. But the light came on anyway. I felt like someone had pressed their fingers against the base of my skull. Not hard, just enough to remind me they were there. Okay, I said. To who, I didn't know. Okay. The next few days were a blur of trying and failing to do the same thing. I told myself I wouldn't sleep. I'd sit up. I'd record. I'd watch the footage. The footage always showed the same thing. Me in a room, not moving much. Sometimes I'd lose 4 hours, sometimes 2. Once I blacked out for barely 30 minutes, no sign of me getting up, no sign of him. But outside the videos, the city kept bleeding. 2 more murders. A jogger in the park, found in the bushes by a man walking his dog. A taxi driver, slumped in his car at the end of a shift, head resting almost gently against the steering wheel. Everything from the neck down, a ruin. The news stopped calling it random. They stopped sounding surprised. The anchors' voices took on this careful tone, like they were all reading from the same invisible script. Don't panic, do panic. Stay inside. Don't let your kids walk alone. Check your locks twice. The city is safe, except when it absolutely isn't. People got jumpier at the store. Customers watched each other. Watched me. The cops came in more often. They asked if they could see our security footage. Corporate said yes. Corporate always says yes when many lawyers with badges ask nicely. Every time the cops came by, my heart picked up. Not because I thought they knew, because I thought maybe they'd tell me. Any new leads? I asked one night. when an older detective in a wrinkled shirt was waiting for his coffee to finish dripping. He gave me a look like he didn't feel like talking to a cashier at 4 a.m, but there was no one else around. "Same as on TV," he said. "We're working on it." "Must be rough," I said, "trying to catch someone who doesn't sleep." He squinted at me. "Who told you that?" "It's what people say," I said, shrugging like it was nothing. "Online. The nickname." His jaw tightened. "We don't give them nicknames," he said. "We don't encourage that." "Right. Sorry." He took his coffee and left without another word. I watched him go. He walked like his back hurt, like he hadn't slept either. Maybe none of us had. The thing with never really sleeping is that the longer it goes on, the less you trust anything. Your eyes, your memories, your thoughts. You start checking the same stuff over and over. Is the door locked? Did I turn the stove off? Did I wash my hands? Did I kill someone? That last one lodged in my brain and wouldn't come out. I started checking myself when I got home. Always the same ritual. Door, lights, clothes. I'd stand under the harsh bulb in my bathroom and look for stains on my hoodie, my jeans, my skin. I'd sniff my sleeves. I'd scrub my hands until they were raw. Sometimes my nails would be clean. Sometimes there'd be that thin grayish crust under them that could have been dirt, could have been anything else. Once I found a hair stuck to my watch strap. Long, dark, not mine. I held it up to the light, heart hammering. It snagged on my fingertip and fluttered to the floor. I didn't pick it up. Through all of it, he kept appearing in the window. Not every day, not on schedule. Sometimes his light stayed off for 2 mornings in a row, and I'd think maybe he'd left. Maybe he'd moved out. Maybe that was that. Then I'd look up and there he'd be, standing in that rectangle of light, watching me. We never waved. Not really. Sometimes his hand would lift a fraction, fingers flexing like he had an itch. Sometimes I'd raise my own hand without meaning to, then drop it when I realized what I was doing. Mostly we just stared. It felt less and less like looking at a stranger. I noticed small things. The way he pressed his lips together when he was thinking. The way his shoulders were never fully relaxed, always slightly tense, like mine. The way he tilted his head when sirens went by, tracking the sound. Once, a phone lit up near his hip, throwing a bluish glow over his shirt. He didn't look at it. Neither did I when mine buzzed a second later. The night everything tipped started like any other. Quiet. Wrong. There was a storm that evening, the kind the city isn't built for. Rain hammered on the supermarket roof so loud we had to shout to hear each other. Water leaked under the automatic doors, making the entrance a slick, muddy mess. Around midnight, the power flickered. The lights dimmed, came back, dimmed again. The freezers beeped in protest. "If we lose power, we're closing," Paula said, half hopeful, half terrified. "I don't care what corporate says. I'm not standing in a dark box while Mr. Never Sleeps roams around out there." "Maybe he doesn't like the rain," Jamal said. "Maybe he takes nights off." "Lucky him," Paula said. I tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. Around 2, the storm died down. The streets outside were shiny and empty. The store was quiet. Too quiet. No drunk kids. no late shift nurses. The kind of night where the aisles feel longer and the corners feel darker. "Break," Paula said, tossing me a candy bar like that made it better. "I'll stay out here," I said automatically. "No," she said. "Go. 10 minutes. Eat something. You're pale as shit." I'm always pale. Paler than usual then. She gave me a look that didn't invite disagreement. "Go." I went. The break room smelled like microwaved meat and disinfectant. The old TV was on, volume low, showing some rerun no one was watching. I sat in my usual chair, put the candy bar on the table, didn't open it. My phone said 2:19. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. "Don't blink," I told myself. I blinked. The next thing I knew, I was standing in the stockroom. The candy bar was still on the break room table. I knew that because I had a clear memory of not opening it. And yet here I was, hands empty, back here among the boxes and pallets, and the smell of cardboard and floor cleaner. My phone said 3:03. My heart lurched. I looked down at myself. Sleeves, hoodie, jeans, wet, not soaked, not like I'd gone swimming, but damp. Dark patches on the fabric, uneven, spreading out. The smell hit me a second later. Not metallic this time. Bleach. Strong enough to burn my throat. I was standing next to the door to the back hallway, the one sealed off with plastic. Except it wasn't sealed anymore. The sheeting hung loose, the duct tape peeled back. Enough for someone to slip through. Someone like me. A bucket sat by my foot, half full of cloudy water that smelled like a hospital. A mop leaned against the wall, its head dripping pinkish foam into the bucket. My hands stung. I turned them over. The skin on my fingers was red and cracked. A few little cuts at the tips. Under my nails, something pale and stringy was wedged deep. I swallowed hard and wiped them on my jeans, which did nothing but smear it around. The hallway beyond the plastic was darker than it should have been. The light at the far end was off. The only illumination came from a small emergency exit sign glowing dull green. I stepped forward without meaning to. The plastic brushed my shoulders, clung for a second like it didn't want to let go. The hallway smelled like chemicals. Underneath that, something else. Faint. Old. Like a butcher shop that had been scrubbed and never quite lost the memory. The walls had fresh patches of paint. New plaster. The kind of quick work you do when you want to cover things fast, not well. The floor was damp. I moved on autopilot, shoes squeaking. Every step echoed. At the end of the hallway, the door to the loading bay stood slightly ajar. Light leaked around the frame, not bright, yellowish, like the cheap bulbs in the apartments on my street. I pushed the door with 2 fingers. It swung inward with a soft whine. The loading bay was empty. No pallets, no boxes, no trucks backed up against the dock. Just concrete and shadows, and a single folding table off to one side. On the table, a laptop was open. The screen glowed, casting a sickly rectangle of light on the wall. Next to it, a small black device sat upright on a little stand. A camera. One of ours. The kind used for the aisles. Somebody had unplugged it from the ceiling mount and set it up here. My heart thudded against my ribs hard enough to hurt. I stepped closer. The laptop screen showed a grid of windows, security feeds, 4x4, 16 little moving pictures, the front entrance, the aisles, the cash registers, the parking lot, and one window labeled back hall. That one was black. A blank square with a little red icon in the corner like the connection was cut. I clicked it. The footage popped open in a bigger window. A timestamp in the corner. 2:23. The hallway appeared. Empty. Plastic hanging. Tape intact. Fast forward. The timeline jumped. The hallway stayed empty. 2:31. My thumb hovered over the keypad. My hand trembled. 2:38. The picture flickered. For a second it looked like a smear, like someone had dragged their hand across wet paint. Then, movement. A figure stepped into frame from the far end, head down, hoodie up, hands at their sides. The image wasn't great. The camera angle was bad, but I knew the shape of that body, knew the curve of the shoulders, the lazy way one foot turned out a little. Me. I watched myself walk toward the camera, toward the spot where I was now standing. The me on screen stopped in the middle of the hallway, lifted one hand, pressed it flat against the wall, dragged it slowly along, leaving a long, dark streak. Paint, I told myself. Wet paint. The streak glistened under the emergency light, too thin to be much of anything, too dark to mistake for anything else. The me on screen didn't look at the camera. He moved like he knew it was there, and didn't care. He reached the end of the hallway and vanished off to the side. The timestamp rolled forward. 2 minutes. 3. He didn't come back. I scrubbed ahead. 2:43. 2:49. 2:51. At 2:52, the screen wobbled. The camera angle tilted as if someone had bumped it. Then it went black. I stood there in the loading bay, with the bleach sting in my nose, and the laptop glow on my face, and realized my legs were shaking. Hey! The shout made me jump so hard the mouse skittered off the table. I spun. Paula stood in the doorway from the stockroom. Her eyes were wide. Her ponytail was damp from the rain. "What the hell are you doing back here?" she said. "This area's supposed to be closed off." My voice came out hoarse. The power flickered. I was just checking. She frowned. "We got guys for that." "You're not a guy for that. You're a register monkey." "I couldn't sleep," I said, which wasn't an answer to anything. She studied me. Her gaze dropped to my hands, my sleeves, the bucket by my foot. "Why are you cleaning?" she asked slowly. "Who told you to clean?" "I don't know," I said. Her mouth tightened. "You don't know?" "I was in the break room," I said, the words tripping over each other. "Then I was here. I lost time again." She stared at me like she was trying to see if I was joking. I wished I were. "Look," I said. "Look at this." I turned to the laptop. The mouse felt slick in my hand. I rewound the footage and hit play. Nothing. Black screen. Red icon. No signal in the middle in stark white letters. My stomach dropped. "No, wait," I said. My fingers scrambled over the keys. I tried another time. Another. Nothing. The file I'd just watched didn't show up in the list at all. There were gaps where there should have been footage. 30-minute chunks of no data. "System's been fucked all week," Paula said behind me. Some IT guy said something about corrupt sectors or whatever. Corporate doesn't want to pay to get it replaced. She stepped closer, peering at the screen. "Why? What were you expecting to see? Casper? Your boyfriend from across the alley?" I turned to her slowly. "What did you say?" She blinked. "What? My... what?" She smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Come on, man. Everybody's seen you. Standing at that window every morning, staring at that other window like you're trying to burn a hole in it." Heat flushed up my neck. "You've seen him?" I said. The word came out strangled. "Who?" "The guy in the window, across from me. You've seen him." She squinted. "What are you talking about?" I stared at her. "You just said..." "I said everybody's seen you at the window," she said slowly, like she was talking to a child. "Your place is right there." She hooked a thumb in the vague direction of my building. Big dramatic silhouette, cigarette glowing. "You're not subtle. But the other building?" She shrugged. "I don't know, man. I don't look at strangers' windows. I'm not a creep." "I'm not." I stopped. Took a breath. "You've never seen anyone there?" "Where?" I wanted to shake her, to drag her outside, point, make her look. Instead, I just said, "Never mind." She watched me for a second, something like concern flickering across her face. Then she sighed. "Look," she said, "I get it. It's been a lot. Lucia and all. You're fried. We all are. I'm gonna pretend I didn't see you back here messing with the cameras, okay? Just go home. Get some sleep." My laugh came out sharp. "Yeah," I said. "Sleep." She didn't laugh with me. "Go," she said. "Now. I'll fix your timesheet later." I went. Outside, the air was thick and damp. The storm had left puddles in every dip in the pavement. Streetlights glowed in them like drowned moons. I didn't take my usual route home. I cut through side streets, doubled back, walked in pointless loops. I told myself I was trying to clear my head. Really, I was trying to avoid the alley between my building and his for as long as possible. When I finally turned onto my street, my heart started to hammer again. Both buildings stood in their usual spots. Mine, his. Windows like stacked eyes. His window was lit. He was there. Of course he was there. I slowed without meaning to. My feet dragged. Each step forward felt like it took years. By the time I reached my entrance, I was breathing hard. I didn't go in. Instead, I crossed the alley. The door to his building was propped open with a brick. No one stood in the lobby. No one sat on the stairs. The air inside was stale, I hesitated on the threshold. I thought about going up to my own apartment, locking the door, pulling the curtains, pretending this wasn't happening. Then I thought about the bleach bucket, my sleeves, the missing footage. I went inside. The stairwell was the same as last time. Same graffiti. Same burned out bulb on the second floor landing. My shoes squeaked on the damp concrete. On the third floor, I stopped. The door with the smudges was there. The stains on the handle had faded but not disappeared. New ones joined them. A vague, rusty arc near the bottom like something had been dragged across it. No sound came from inside. No TV. No voices. Just the distant hum of pipes in the walls. My hand hovered over the knob. Last time I'd run. This time I closed my fingers around the metal. It was warm. I turned it. The door opened. I'd prepared myself for a lot of things. Rot. Blood. Bodies. The metallic slap of something awful hitting my throat. I wasn't prepared for how ordinary it looked. It was almost the same as my apartment. Same hallway, just mirrored. Same cheap laminate flooring. Same ivory walls. Same cheap ceiling fixture with a dead bug trapped inside the plastic casing. A jacket hung on the hook by the door. Dark, damp around the cuffs. I stepped inside. To the left, a small kitchen. Sink full of dishes, some with congealed something stuck to them. A cracked mug with a chipped rim. An ashtray overflowing with cigarette butts. To the right, a cramped living room. Couch, low table, TV on a flimsy stand. Curtains half drawn, letting that familiar yellow light spill across the floor. At the far wall, the window. My window across from his. From here, my apartment looked unreal. A picture. The glass reflected some of the room back at me, doubling everything. The air smelled faintly wrong. Under the usual apartment mix, dust, stale smoke, food, there was another note. Sickly sweet. Faint. Like something had been spilt and cleaned and spilt and cleaned again. "Hello?" I said, because not saying anything felt worse. My voice sounded small in the empty room. No answer. I walked further in. My heartbeat kept climbing. My hands felt too big, like I didn't know what to do with them. The couch had an indentation in the middle cushion. The fabric there was darker, worn. Beside it on the floor, a pair of shoes sat neatly side by side, same size as mine. Same brand as mine even. Different color. On the table there was a notebook. The cover was plain black. No, not plain. Scored. Lines carved into it with something sharp. Over and over in the same spot, like someone had dragged a knife across the same path again and again out of boredom or rage or both. I picked it up. The edges of the pages were stained, brownish in some spots, gray in others. The book felt heavier than it should have. I opened it. The first page was blank. The second wasn't. It was full of numbers, column after column of dates and times, sloppy handwriting, half the digits overwritten as if whoever wrote them couldn't decide if it was a 3 or an 8. I flipped ahead. More numbers. Hours circled, underlined, little notes scribbled in the margins. Awake. Gone. No memory. My skin crawled. Halfway through, the numbers stopped. The rest of the pages were drawings. They started simple. Rough sketches, a window, a silhouette, two rectangles facing each other. Then they got worse. People's faces. Some I recognized, some I didn't. The woman with the blue beanie, Lucia, the bartender from the bar. The pictures were crude but specific: a mole by the nose, a chipped tooth, a certain way the hair fell on one side. Next to each face, the same words appeared again and again, written over themselves until the paper broke. I was asleep. I flipped further. The drawings got messier, sharper lines, harder strokes, less human. Hands, always hands. Open, closed, reaching. Fingers too long. Same words scrawled over them. I was asleep. I was asleep. I was asleep. At the back of the notebook, there was a scrap taped in. A printed screenshot from a news site. The meme. Red text over a blurry street. The man who never sleeps. Under it, in pen, someone had written, "Which one?" My vision swam. For a second I thought I was going to pass out. I clamped the book shut and pressed it against my chest, like that would keep everything inside it. A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned so fast the room smeared. He stood in the hallway. Same dark t-shirt, same gray sweatpants, same narrow shoulders, long neck. His hair was damp, sticking up in uneven spikes. His eyes were wide and deeply shadowed. Up close, he looked even more like me. Not exactly. Not like a twin. More like a bad photocopy. Or maybe I was the copy. We stared at each other. Neither of us said anything. He looked down at my hands, at the notebook. His face twisted in something like annoyance. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said. His voice was mine, a little rougher, like he'd been smoking more. But mine. I swallowed. "Who are you?" He frowned like it was a stupid question. "You know who I am," he said. "I don't," I said. My chest hurt. "I don't understand any of this. Have you been killing people?" he said. Casual, like we were talking about the weather. The word hung in the air between us. "Yes," I forced out. He tilted his head. Sometimes. My voice cracked on the word. He shrugged. "Sometimes it's you." My throat closed. "No," I said. I'm at work. I'm standing in aisles. I'm sitting at tables. I have video. I'm there." "And so am I," he said. He stepped closer. My feet wanted to back up. My body didn't move. He nodded toward the window. "You see me there?" "Yeah." "Where are you when I'm there?" I opened my mouth, closed it, thought about the gap places, the jumps, the way one second I'd be in the store and the next on my couch, the way I'd sit and record myself not moving while time poured away behind my eyes. "I'm asleep," I said. He smiled. It was small, sad almost. "There it is," he said. "Finally." I'm not doing anything, I said. I'm just gone. Yeah, he said. You're gone, and I'm up. Somebody has to be. I clung to the notebook like it was a lifeline. Why? I said. Why are you doing this? His expression flickered. For a second, a flash of something, hurt, anger, passed over it. Why do you think? He said quietly. I don't know. Yes, you do. I thought about Lucia's eyes at the register, the way she'd stared at the counter, the way the guy had grabbed her elbow. I thought about the bartender, working late for tips that wouldn't be enough, the woman with the blue beanie, buying yogurt and probiotic drinks that promised everything and delivered nothing. I thought about the map online with the little red pins, the circle around our neighborhood. He watched my face. Nobody does anything, he said. They see, they look, they go home, they watch the news, they shake their heads. He gestured around the room. You stand at the window and stare. You don't sleep. You don't talk. You don't move. You're rotting. Anger rose in me, stupid and defensive. So you decided to start murdering people? His jaw clenched. I decided to do something, he said. You won't. You never will. That's why I'm here. That's not doing something, I snapped. That's what, he said. Wrong? Evil? You watch people get ground up every night and you never blink. You ring up their cigarettes and cheap wine and bruised fruit and send them back out there. I at least pay attention to who deserves what. My stomach churned. You think they deserve that? I said. Lucia? The others? He hesitated. The first crack. I didn't say that, he said. You just did, I said. You said you pay attention to who deserves what. He sucked in a slow breath. His eyes flickered to the notebook in my hands. You really don't remember, he said softly. Remember what? What you asked me for? A chill slid down my spine. I didn't ask for anything, I said. You did, he said. Night after night. Not out loud. In here. He tapped his temple. I only know what you know. I only feel what you feel. You think I came from nowhere. You think I just popped up in some opposite window because you were bored. I've never wanted anyone dead, I said. But even as I said it, my mind flicked through flashes. The guy with Lucia. The drunk who joked about the bartender customers who snapped their fingers at me. People who pushed past old women. Faces I'd glared at, cursed in my head, wished small, stupid harm on. Slip. Fall. Get your teeth knocked out. Get what's coming to you. We all think stuff like that. We don't mean it, right? You never sleep, he said. Not really. You lie there and loop the worst bits on repeat. I should have said something. I should have done something. I'm useless. I'm a ghost. I'm so fucking tired. He mimicked my voice when he said it, and it made my skin crawl. You wanted someone to move somebody to go out there in the dark where you were too scared to go. Well, congratulations. You got him. I didn't ask you to kill anyone, I said. My voice had gone high and thin. You did not ask, he said. You left it blank. I filled it in. Then stop, I said. My eyes burned. You can stop. We can tell someone. We can get help. We can... Tell who? He said. The cops? Hi, officer. It's me and the thing that lives in my insomniac brain. We've both done some things we're not proud of. How do you think that goes? He moved closer. I could see the pores on his nose now, a faint nick on his jaw from a recent shave, a tiny scar near his eyebrow I'd forgotten I had, or maybe he'd gotten it somewhere I hadn't. I'm not a thing, he said quietly. I'm you, the part that got tired of just watching. I don't want this, I said. He nodded, almost sympathetic. I know. Then stop. He looked at the notebook again. I tried, he said. You write it down, over and over. I was asleep. I didn't know. I'm not responsible. You think that makes me go away? I didn't write this, I said. He smiled without humor. Who did then? We're not the same, I said. You stand in that window when I'm passed out. You walk around while I'm gone. That's not me. It is, he said simply. You're the day shift. I'm the night. Same store. Same ugly uniform. Something in me snapped. I threw the notebook at him. It hit his chest and dropped to the floor, pages splaying. A few loose ones tore free, fluttering down like slow, heavy snow. His expression didn't change much, just one eyebrow lifting. Feel better? He asked. No, I said. Good, he said. You shouldn't. We stood there breathing. What happens, I said finally, when they catch us? He tilted his head again, considering. They catch you, he said. And you? I asked. He smiled. I go back to the window, he said, where I belong. Something slammed upstairs. A door. Footsteps pounded along the ceiling. A baby started crying 2 floors down, thin and high. Life in the building went on, oblivious. He looked up at the noise, then back at me. You should go, he said. You've been here too long. People will notice. You live across the alley from me, I said. They'll notice that too. Do I? He said. I blinked. What? He gestured at the window. Look. I turned. My apartment stared back. Same cheap curtains, same leaning fake plant in the corner, same scorch mark on the wall near the outlet from where my old space heater had tried to take me out a winter ago. The glass reflected the room I was in. 2 couches, 2 tables, 2 me's. Then, slowly, while I watched, the other room dimmed. My lights going off, my stomach lurched. I started. The me in the other window stepped into view. Jeans, hoodie. Same as what I was wearing now, except the hoodie had a dark streak across the chest that mine didn't. His face was shadowed. He raised his hand. For a second, I thought he was waving. Then he pressed his palm flat against the glass. My own hand tingled. I stared, throat tight. He's been there the whole time, the man beside me said softly. You only ever look one way. I turned back. The space where he'd been was empty. My chest clenched. Where did you? The front door slammed. Not his. Mine. Down the hall, something clattered. A drawer. A chair. My heart tried to punch its way out of my body. You should go, his voice said. But it wasn't from beside me. It was from everywhere at once. Inside my head. Inside the walls. My legs moved on their own. In the hallway, the jacket on the hook brushed my shoulder like a hand. My fingers fumbled with the doorknob. For a second, it wouldn't turn. Then it did, and I stumbled out onto the third-floor landing. The stairwell spun around me. I half ran, half fell down the stairs. My shoes slipped on wet concrete. I slammed into the wall on the first-floor landing hard enough to see sparks. By the time I burst out onto the street, my lungs were burning. My building's front door was closed. The intercom buzzed faintly. Somebody inside was holding the button too long, an angry monotone. I jammed my key in the lock. It stuck, then gave. The door swung inward, and I squeezed through, almost hitting the old woman who lived on the second floor. She jerked back. "Watch it," she snapped. "What's the hurry?" I muttered something that might have been sorry, and took the stairs 2 at a time. My feet barely touched them. My pulse roared in my ears. Outside my apartment, the hall smelled wrong. Not like bleach, like The Notebook. Sweet, thick, under the cheap air freshener someone down the hall always used. My door was closed. I put my ear to it. Silence. For a long second, I just stood there, hand on the knob, head against the wood. If you go in, a part of me thought, it all becomes real. If you don't, another part said, it still is. I turned the knob. The door swung open. The living room looked normal at first glance. Couch, table, TV. The mug with yesterday's coffee ring still on the surface. My backpack on the chair. Then my eyes tracked the floor. Footprints, dark and wet. From the door to the middle of the room. From there, smears. A drag mark. Something heavy pulled along. It led toward the bedroom. My heart climbed higher into my throat with every step. The bedroom door was half open. The air beyond it was colder. I pushed the door. For a second, my brain refused to process what I was looking at. The sheets were tangled. The mattress half off the frame. The wall above the bed was a mess of color and texture that didn't belong. It looked like someone had thrown a bucket of red paint and then tried to smear it away. There was a shape on the floor, curled in on itself. Clothes shredded, skin mottled with ugly blooms of purple and red. Hair plastered to a face I almost recognized from somewhere I couldn't place. Mouth open, eyes staring. I didn't register the scream as my own until my throat hurt. I stumbled back, shoulder hitting the door frame. My stomach lurched. I doubled over and threw up on the floor. Acid burned my nose, my eyes. The sound of my retching filled the room, bounced off the walls, mingled with some smaller, wetter noises I didn't want to identify. "Fuck," I gasped between heaves. "Fuck, fuck, fuck." The shape on the floor didn't move. After a while, the heaving stopped. I hung there, hands on my knees, panting. "Don't look," I told myself. I looked anyway. The woman on my floor had a name tag pinned crookedly to her chest. Lucia. Not the neat one from the staff photo. A new one. One someone had hastily printed, the edges still sharp. The plastic was cracked. The pin bent. How? I whispered. I'd seen her die already. I'd watched it on the news. I'd seen the candle shrine outside the staff door, the wings drawn around her face. My vision swam. I stepped closer on unsteady legs. My shoe squelched in something I didn't want to think about. The Lucia on my floor wasn't the same as the one on TV. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner, her cheeks hollowed out, the bruises old. This wasn't her. Not really. But the name tag said it was. My breath came in shallow snaps. Behind me, the floorboard by the window creaked. I turned, slow as if thick water held me. He stood there, between me and the sign of the alley. In my room now, not across. His shirt was soaked down the front, the dark streaks almost black in this light. Practice, he said quietly. It doesn't count if it's practice. I couldn't make my mouth form words. He cocked his head, considering the woman on the floor. I had to see if you'd notice, he said. If you'd wake up. My voice scraped its way out of my throat. Who is she? He shrugged. No one, he said. Yet. That's the point. I stared. What? You think it starts when the news cares, he said. It doesn't. It starts here. He tapped his foot next to her. In rooms like this, hallways, parking lots, somebody looks away. Somebody doesn't say anything. That's where the blood starts. You brought her here, I said. We brought her here, he said. You said you couldn't watch another news segment, that you wanted to stop it before it started. I never said. You thought it, he cut in. You think a lot of things. Behind my ribs, something cracked. This isn't stopping anything, I said. This is you, this is me, hurting someone who hasn't done anything. Yet, he repeated. That doesn't matter, I snapped. It came out more like a sob. You can't. We don't get to decide. He watched me. My own eyes, colder than I'd ever seen them in a mirror. You already did, he said. Every time you didn't step in. Every time you watched and walked away. You decided for them. You decided they weren't worth the discomfort. That's not the same, I whispered. Isn't it? He asked. We stood there, tangled in the stink and the red and the sickly sweet air. Outside, a siren wailed faintly, distant for now. Call them, I said. The words surprised me as much as they seemed to surprise him. The cops. Now. We tell them. Everything. He snorted. You think they'll believe you? I don't care if they believe me, I said. My legs were shaking so hard I had to lean against the wall. They just need to take me away. Lock me up. You up. Whatever. This has to stop. He went very still. You'd go to prison, he said slowly. Forever. For things you don't remember. I remember enough, I said. I gestured weakly around the room. This, the other ones. I don't care if it was you or me or both. It doesn't matter, it's us. We're the same. You said so. He watched me with a strange expression. Not mocking, not angry, almost proud. You finally saying we, huh? He said. I can't do this anymore, I said. My voice broke on the last word. I can't wake up like this. I can't watch the news and wonder what I did. Just, please. He looked down at the woman on the floor. Something passed over his face. A flicker of doubt. A twitch of pain. Then he nodded. Okay, he said. We'll call. I reached for my phone with hands that didn't feel like mine. My fingers found the emergency number by muscle memory. He leaned against the window frame, watching. The line rang once, twice. Emergency services, a calm voice said. What's the address of your emergency? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. The words jammed in my throat. The room swam. My tongue felt thick and useless. I could hear myself breathing, harsh and ragged, in the phone's tiny speaker. Hello? The voice said. Can you hear me? He raised his eyebrows at me. A tiny, cruel smile. Tell them, he mouthed. I forced air through my lungs. I started. I looked down. The floor was empty. No woman, no blood, no smeared wall. Just my shitty mattress, crooked on the frame. My rumpled sheets. The scuff mark I'd been meaning to clean for months. Not even vomit. The air smelled like dust and my own stale sweat. I stared, dizzy. I'm sorry, I heard myself say into the phone. Wrong number. I hung up before the operator could answer. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. He laughed. Low. Tired. You see, he said. You can't even do that. My hand shook around the phone. Where did she go? I whispered. Nowhere, he said. She was never here. Not yet. Just a thought. A rehearsal. You're very good at rehearsing. My head spun. I saw her. You imagined her, he said. Your brain filled in the gap. It's been doing that for years. You think sleep is the only place you go when you're not watching. You drift all the time. You paint monsters on blank walls and forget you brought the paint. I touched her, I said. I smelled. You wanted to, he said. You wanted to see what it would look like, what we're capable of. You made a little stage in your head and put her on it. No harm done. Yet. He pushed off the wall and stepped closer. His face was inches from mine now. I could see the red veins in his eyes, the faint tremble in the muscles of his jaw. You asked why, he said. Why I do it. Why I kill. The words still made my stomach flip. He lifted his hand, tapped my chest with 2 fingers. The touch was light, almost gentle. Because you won't, he said. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to hug him. I wanted him gone. I wanted him to stay so I didn't have to be alone with this. Instead, I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, knees pulled up, phone in a death grip. I can't keep doing this, I whispered. You say that a lot, he said. Then you keep going. What if I stop for real? I said. What if I check out completely? Then you go with me, right? No more nights. No more anything. He went quiet. For a second, something like fear flashed across his face. Don't, he said. Just that. Soft. Why not? I said. If you're right, if we're the same, then it's the only way to make sure. He shook his head. You don't know what's on the other side. Maybe nothing, I said. He swallowed. For the first time, he looked older than me. Smaller. Maybe not, he said. Maybe I get stuck with all of it. Every second. Forever. I stared at him. He stared back. I'm tired, I said. I know, he said. Behind him, outside the window, the sky was lightening. That strange non-color between night and day washed over the buildings. He glanced over his shoulder, watched it for a second, then looked back at me. We're running out of nights, he said again, one way or another. We sat there together as the room slowly brightened. Two guys on a bedroom floor, leaning against the same flaking wall. My phone buzzed once with a news alert I didn't check. Across the alley, his window turned into a mirror, reflecting my room, my face, my double. At some point, my eyes closed. Not a choice, not a drift. Just gone. No falling, no dreams, no nothing. When they opened, I was standing at my window. My hands were on the sill. My forehead leaned against the cool glass. Outside, the alley was empty and clean. No cops, no tape, no candles. The city hummed in that low, just woke up way. Across from me, the opposite window was dark. No curtains, no couch, no lamp. Just bare, dusty glass. For a second, I thought it was the wrong one, a different apartment. Then I looked at the brick around it, the chipped corner, the little crack in the top right where someone had slammed it too hard once. Same window, different inside. The room beyond was bare, no furniture, no light fixture. Just a few old paint buckets stacked in the corner. No one had lived there in a long time. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I took it out with stiff fingers and looked at the screen. 4 missed calls from Paula. A news alert. Another body found, it said. Possible man who never sleeps victim. My thumb hovered over the headline. I didn't open it. Instead, I lifted my eyes back to the empty window. My reflection stared back. Pale. Big eye bags. Dead inside. I raised my hand. So did he. We moved at the same time, perfectly synced, like a trick I hadn't realized I'd been practicing. I pressed my palm flat against the glass. It was cold. On the other side, my hand touched mine. For a second, I thought I felt another pulse, not just my own, a double beat, out of time, out of sync. Then it was gone. Someone downstairs slammed a door. A car horn blared in the street. A kid yelled at someone to wait up. Day shift noises. I stood there and waited to feel rested. I didn't. I never do. People have theories about the man who never sleeps. They argue online about whether he's one guy or a copycat, whether he's a genius or an animal, whether he's real at all, or a story the city tells itself to make sense of the constant, grinding fear. They don't know about the other man at the window, the one who watches himself and can't tell where he ends and the other one begins. They don't know that sometimes I wake up with someone else's blood under my nails, and sometimes I don't, and both are terrible. They don't know that the worst part isn't the murders. It's the waiting, the hours between, the false mornings where nothing happens, and the news is quiet, and I start to think maybe it's over. Maybe he's gone. Maybe we got through the night without anybody dying. Those are the dangerous days. The ones where I almost believe I'm just tired, just overworked, just another face in the checkout lane. Then the sirens start up again, or my phone buzzes, or the city gets a little quieter in that heavy way that means bad news is traveling. And I remember, we're the same man. One of us never sleeps. The other one never really wakes up.